Hi everyone, welcome to week 12, believe it or not, of writing and research. We are somehow on the home stretch of the course. So this week we will be working on finishing up our final written assignment, and we'll be starting to shift towards the public speaking portion of the course. Last week we finished up our research papers, those should already be in. This week we will be revising and finishing up the final drafts of our persuasive essays, which would be about 3 pages long. We will also be starting to think about our public speaking skills and about how to film the presentations for the last part of the course. If you go into the modules for this week and into the lecture, you will see that there is a lot of information about finishing up the persuasive essays and about thinking about public speaking. In this video, I want to give 3 basic tips for finishing up the persuasive essays. Tip number 1, make sure your final draft has a thesis statement that needs to be proven. You should not have an argument that is too obvious. If you have a statement that is clearly true, such as drunk driving is bad, that is not a thesis statement. It is clearly true. It does not need to be proven with evidence. If you have a thesis statement that is a question, I also want you to revisit it. Your thesis statement needs to be an answer to that question. For example, you might have a thesis statement that is along the lines of, is it morally acceptable for people to have an abortion? All right, if that's what you're choosing, that is your question. That is a good starting point. That's not an argument. Your argument needs to be your position on that question. So try to go beyond just having the question or having something like, abortion is a very controversial issue right now. That is clearly true. That's not a position. Try to take a position. The second tip for improving our persuasive essays is once you have that argument, once you have that position, organize the essay around it. Each body paragraph should come back directly to that argument. If you are looking at your rough draft and you're not sure whether a body paragraph comes back to that argument, you have a couple of options. The first option, revisit that argument. How could you maybe revise it to bring that body paragraph into account? That's the first option. The second option, reshape that body paragraph. Is there a way that you can look at that body paragraph and change it in a way that proves that argument, your argument, or somehow connect it to it? Another option, and this is the most heartbreaking of options, if you're not sure if that body paragraph supports your argument, you might have to delete it. It might not fit into the paper. That hurts because we lose length, but sometimes revision is about getting rid of stuff as well as about adding stuff. All right, now the third tip has to do with the conclusion. You can use the conclusion in your persuasive essays to do more than just restate what you've already said. This might seem a little weird, but it actually helps you out. One way to think about the conclusion is as a chance to open up your argument. There are a couple of ways to do that. The first way to do it is to think about a counter argument. So if you are writing about gun laws, say you get to 3 pages into the paper, so you're starting to wrap up, and you have an argument that says something along the lines of the American government needs to create stricter gun laws. All right, that's your argument. You supported it. Now when you get to the conclusion, quickly think about the other side. You can begin the conclusion by saying something as simple as some people would argue that restricting gun ownership violates the Second Amendment. All right, that is what someone can reasonably say against your argument. In your conclusion, then push against that argument. This gives you a way to use the counter argument to strengthen your own position. That is one way of opening up your argument. Another way of opening up your argument is to think about the implications. For example, and I'll stick with my gun legislation example. If you argue that we need to have stricter gun laws, how do we move forward from there? How can the government go about creating those laws? What can American citizens do in order to push for those laws? What should those laws look like? You can use the conclusion to think about all of these practical concerns. Now, this option is just another way of taking what you've already supported and moving it around and pushing it forward. Those are 3 quick tips. Again, tip number 1, create a thesis statement that you need to argue for, that is not obvious, that someone might disagree with. Second tip, organize your essay around that argument. Everything should come back to it. Everything should have a purpose. And then the third tip, use the conclusion as a way to open up and think about the implications of your argument or to think about the counter argument. All right, that's it for this short video. If anything comes up with finishing up the persuasive essays or with thinking about the videos for the last portion of the course, let me know and I'd be more than happy to help you.